is that chaos always reorganizes itself into a higher form of order. Chaos always reorganizes itself into a higher form of order. So the code is this, okay? You have order, you have balance, you have cohesion, and it's nice, it's peaceful, it's harmonious. And then it gets boring. It gets stale. You know what I mean? You ever been in a relationship where you guys never fight? You kind of want to poke them a little bit just to get some kind of growth, some kind of expansion. Let's be a little obnoxious here, right? So you have order, you have balance, and then it gets bored. So it breaks into chaos. And then from that chaos, it reorganizes into a higher form of order. And then that order gets bored, and it breaks into chaos, and it reorganizes into an even higher form of order. Ooh. And so this pattern we can see playing out cyclically over the course of our lives. And not only that, but we see it playing out through this entire physical realm that we inhabit. I mean, for example, let's look at evolution for a moment. Let's look at how we got these cool little nubs attached to our palms, right? These cool little opposable thumbs. Let me see your thumbs. Are these things cool? They're special. We kind of take them for granted sometimes, right? So back millions of years ago, right, our pre-primate ancestors, they were exposed to certain environmental challenges, certain changes that threatened their survival. So in order for them to survive, they needed to be able to develop tools. They needed to be able to develop higher cognitive and motor abilities. So in order to adapt to these challenges, to these changes, they evolved into having these cool little worm thingies attached to our hands. I don't know why I call them worms. Attached to our palms. But when our ancestors, when they were first exposed to those challenges, to those changes, it registered in their system as a loss of control. It was registered as chaos. And then from that chaos, life reorganized itself into a higher form of expression. Okay? Another example, let's say you're trying to build muscle at the gym. And you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights, right? Well, you lift weights to the point of exhaustion. You lift weights to the point your muscles are fatigued, where you cannot lift anymore. And when you get to that point where you can't lift anymore, your muscle cells register that as a loss of control. They register that as chaos. And then from that chaos, your muscle cells reorganize into a higher form of order. In other words, you build more muscle, right? And so this exact same pattern plays out cyclically over the course of our life. We're coming to earth, we will periodically go through periods of devastation. We will periodically go through periods of setback. We will periodically go through periods of loss. And when we go through these periods, there's this innate tendency for us to take it so personal and to blame ourselves for what we're going through. You know, where we think we're being punished, we think we're making a mistake. And in reality, none of this is actually true. Life is just in the process of giving birth to a higher expression of who and what you are. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to use myself as a map. I'm going to use myself as a model for how this looked in my own life. Okay? So one of my biggest dreams when I was younger, in my teenage years going into my 20s, was I wanted to be a professional classical guitarist. This was like my biggest dream. And for over a decade, my whole life and my whole identity was invested into being this one thing. Okay? I was super passionate about it. And I went on to get my bachelor's degree in classical music. And then I was in the process of going on to get my master's. And when I was in the process of going on to get my master's, it was like all of a sudden a flip just switched in my being. And this inspiration that I had for over a decade was just gone. And this thing that I had completely invested my whole identity around, my whole future, my whole life around, now felt completely meaningless to me. It was a scary feeling. It's like being married to someone for 20 years and then waking up one morning and it's like, hey, I feel like there's a stranger in my bed. Like, why am I feeling this way? You know what I mean? It was terrifying. I couldn't figure out why I was feeling this way. So I decided to take a break from this path. And I went off traveling to try to figure out why I was feeling this way. And when I went traveling, my life completely fell apart. It went into total disarray, went into total chaos. And I was like moving from place to place. I could barely keep my head above water financially. I had no sense of direction, no sense of purpose, because this thing that I thought I was going to do was now felt hollow to me. So I had no idea who I was or what was going on. You know? And it was like every direction I went in that phase, it either led to a dead end or it was like some major catastrophe or tragedy. So it was like my life felt like a minefield. I was like afraid to move. You ever been in one of those phases of life where you feel like your life is a minefield? Anyone ever been there? Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, huh? It's fun. So this is what I went through. I went through this for several years, okay? And then after going through this for several years, I began to notice my life slowly begin to reorganize into a higher focus, into a higher form of expression. And I began to sort of organically, naturally, I found myself involved in spiritual work, where I found myself giving talks, I found myself giving workshops, I found myself compiling writings, creating art. All of these things I had never done before. Okay? So in order for me to go from this to this, I had to first go through this period of chaos. And then from that chaos, life reorganized itself into a higher form of expression so that I could walk this planet as a more authentic embodiment of my soul. Okay? And the reason why I share this is because we ultimately all go through the same thing. Okay? We just go through it in our own unique way. So if any one of you happens to be going through a period of devastation right now, or a period of chaos, maybe you've just lost a loved one, maybe you've just lost a job, maybe you've just lost a significant relationship, or maybe everything in your external world seems fine, but internally maybe there's a void or there's something that you're struggling with and grappling with. And so I just want you to know that whatever it is that you're going through, and to whatever degree you are going through this, I just want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you or anything that you are going through. And that life is just in the process of moving you into a more evolved version of yourself than you were the day before. Okay? I'm wondering, have any of you, have you recognized this pattern where you've been through a devastating period and you've come out on the other end as a better version of yourself? Raise your hand if you've been through this. Okay. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand this. This is information that you're already embodying. You already know this. But sometimes it's helpful just to have that reminder.